Hello, good people. How are you out there today? I welcome you to take a nice long breath with me. How about another one? Thanks for joining me today. I talk about today the journey that I've been on in my life and how my journey has been to know my own spiritual nature, to awaken to my consciousness and my nature of evolution, coming from a country that does not have very much connection to these aspects of life that I feel. Being born in mainland China in a small rural town where all my family are just small town folk that work really darn hard to put enough food on the table. And frankly, they don't really have too much time or energy to choose how they create their leisure time, for example, or just how they choose to put food on the table. There's just not too many options from my family in the small towns that my families come from. And now, having lived in China for the first 7 years, and the fact that most, if not all, of our emotional operating system or mechanisms, for example, are learned from before you're 8 years old, basically. It'll vary for everyone, I'm sure, to some degree. But knowing that and having learned conditionality from that society and just the kind of life you just work your butt off to try to get just some food, and just not having a lot of expectations on being able to get more from society or life. And then moving to Calgary, Alberta when I was 7 years old and living there for 23 years. Calgary is a fairly I would say now that I've moved out of Calgary, it is a city that's more corporate-minded, more conservative-minded, so which lends to perhaps a little more closed-mindedness, or perhaps more conformist energies, or just the feelings is what I felt living in that city for 23 years. So it hasn't been easy being willing to accept my spiritual nature in a sense, because all throughout my life, the people that were around me, my family, the friends that I had throughout school and growing up, I don't recall anyone ever talking about spirituality, or just like these subjects of knowing yourself, or kind of just consciousness, metaphysics, like anything that you can perceive outside of your senses and what you can think of as reality. Like there wasn't much talk of a faith in something outside of what you can experience. And so it took a lot of courage for me to be willing to learn and think and choose to be myself. I guess I started learning about spirituality in my early 20s. The first book I was given from my family doctor in my late teens, the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. But I didn't really read it until like years later, in my early 20s or so. And I certainly didn't really understand it when I was reading it, necessarily. I mean, I'm sure it stirred something, created an opening for new ways of thinking to come in, but it was hard to grasp as coming from one way of thinking, operating and creating life, to this new way that other people in Western society created life. But it was still a challenge because, for example, as I learned more about spiritual principles, and I took a yoga teacher training course in my mid-20s, and then I believe I was the only Asian in the class, if I can recall. And there was only one other male in the class as well, and he was a much older gentleman. just there to to help himself. A very lovely gentleman. But I was certainly a loner in that class. So as I aged in my later 20s and just learning more about spirituality and self-empowerment and actually being able to express yourself authentically, I look back and I just didn't feel that I encountered a lot of people that came from my background or my kind of upbringing. So coming from a really humble kind of family situation life and then immigrating to a Western society and then being a very introverted, very extremely shy kid. And then I just didn't have any examples of someone from my background that looked like me being able to live that kind of a life, like a spiritual kind of life. There were people like Rodney Yee and there were a few examples that people actually did that in Western society. But I certainly had a lot of limitations, so I perceived someone like Rodney Yee, he probably grew up in a family where, who knows, he probably got more support or had actually people in his life that were involved in spirituality or yoga and that helped get him there. I really felt like I was on my own all throughout. Sure, I made a friend at my teacher training. For example, one of the instructors I made is a dear friend of mine. But I still felt so far away. It's like we're a few decades in terms of age difference, and she's Caucasian, comes from a different kind of family situation. So it's that, for me, it's that automatic limitation that immigrants may not even understand or know or conscious of that they do, because I know that's what I did to myself. An automatic limitation or racism, if you will, that I came to Western society and what I watched on TV, what I saw in the newspapers, the magazines, going to the malls, were all beautiful Caucasian white people. And all the commercials were these beautiful Caucasian white families, a fairly abundant, at least a middle income kind of thing, having a good time, being able to express themselves. So I didn't think that it was possible for me. I guess I just perceived the Asians in this society I was living in, and the Asian Chinese big three of wanting to be a doctor, a lawyer, or accounting, business kind of person. And so, but that was on the other side of anything compared to spirituality or metaphysics or choosing to live in one with nature and choosing to, detach from society or detach from your thinking, your thoughts. So it's been quite the journey to validate myself. Even though my body may is Chinese, I'm a spiritual being. I'm part of consciousness. I'm part of the all. I am co-creating this life along with everyone that's alive today. And it's been quite the journey, and it took a lot of courage for me to get to this point where I now do have people, my wife Saoirse, and really good friends and good support network around me, and also the people I am supporting through my teachings and yoga practice. So I've gained the support and the love that I've yearned for my whole life by knowing myself, getting to know myself, and now creating my life. Letting go of all the stuff that prevents me from listening, connecting to my heart, and creating my life authentically, the way I would, and I am very much enjoying my life now. So it is challenging as an immigrant to be able to even open up to these concepts because of the conformist ways of the culture that I come from. The culture I come from is one of needing to save face. That's almost more important than, your livelihood in some respects, or your life to some people even. Who knows? I I think I might have been there at certain points where I'd rather maybe die than go and speak in front of a group of people that I was peers with. That's like by far the most frightening group to be in front of. And throughout school, and I was just in front of your classmates, the peers. Maybe that girl you have a crush on. Maybe the guy you don't want to be embarrassed in front of. Like, what have you? So, and not having the family members that would understand if I talked to them about this. So I didn't have anyone that I was able to talk about this with during my process of awakening to who I really am, my spiritual nature. But it can be done. I was willing to do it for myself, even if I didn't have anyone to support me. But I know I had so many powerful supporters there, from the books I read, from the YouTube videos that I watched, from the movies that I watched, from the stories that I read, mythology. And I realized I was never alone, because I started choosing to be there for myself. For me, I realize now that is the greatest gift I could give to myself, is to be there for myself, is to not abandon myself, is to care about how I feel. And I realize, say for example, the culture I come from, people may be conditioned to care about how others feel over how they themselves feel. I feel most cultures and people are conditioned to have that first, to care maybe about the other's feeling over your own. So making decisions, even if you're going to feel bad about them, the other person might feel good, so you go ahead and do it, so therefore abandoning myself. So it's been very much a process of being brave enough to decide for myself, and being willing to allow the barriers to be released from the love that's always there for me in my heart. And opening up to my own self-love creates the space to open to the love of others, and to be able to offer love to others from the infinite pool of love that we all have in each of our hearts, since that's connected to. So just know that I'm one example of an immigrant that is on this path, and that is very much enjoying life and creating abundance. By abundance, I mean love, I mean friendships, relationships, connection, authenticity, people that are there willing to actually listen to you, and you know, like what kind of home you live in, what kind of the foods you eat. But for me, the greatest abundance is my freedom. I actually feel free. I actually get to create and make decisions that I want to make, not what I think my friends want me to make, not what I think will make my parents happy, not what I think my boss or the company I may work for, how they may want me to make them, but I make them for me, because I choose not to work for a corporation or a boss. I choose to work for me. I choose to work for love, to create love. It may sound corny. I'm not afraid to sound corny anymore. I was corny all throughout high school. People call me corny, and but it's because I care. I really do care a lot. I'm a romantic. I'm a very passionate person. I have tons of energy. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to share with you how I went from hating life, complete despair, just complete anxiety and pain for many, many years, over a decade, to now being able to create what I want to create. And life keeps surprising me with more than I expected, because I don't expect anymore. I don't have expectations or the need to know that I'm going to get a specific thing for my actions. It's always grander than I can expect or imagine. So I just want to be able to share my journey, and I would love to hear and be inspired by your journey. So any questions, please subscribe. There'll be much more discussions based on this topic. And if any questions, I'll be setting up an Instagram page account very soon with the philosophy that we are creating here. So thank you very much for joining me. It's an honor to be here with you. And just keep willing to be there for yourself. Thank you.